Hey, what's going on, everybody? Leigh Dickey here. Welcome to a brand new episode of Yo Nostalgia, the show that covers everything you grew up with, from films and TV to music, fads and trends, toys, and everything in between. If it's part of the everyday pop culture, if it has happened and is part of the everyday fabric of our lives within the last 50 to 60 years, you bet I'll cover it right here on Yo Nostalgia. Today, this week, I want to give you my reaction and sort of a review of the Saved by the Bell Reboot Revival Series trailer. But before we get into that, I want to tell you where you can find Yo Nostalgia. Of course, Yo Nostalgia has new episodes released every 2 weeks on YouTube under Leigh Dickey TV, my official website, leighddickey.com, and your favorite podcast app and player of choice. Please do rate us 5 stars and leave reviews as well, please, and thank you. If you want to follow along on social media, follow at YONOSTALGIASHOW. Send emails, comments, questions, and topics you want covered on Yo Nostalgia to yonostalgiashow@gmail.com. All right, now that all that housekeeping is out of the way, let's get to the real main event and to why you are here, my reaction and review of the Saved by the Bell Reboot Revival Series trailer. Alright, so the Saved by the Bell Revival / Reboot Series trailer. Let me start this by giving you a bit of the history, at least according to my memory, of the Saved by the Bell series and how it started. Now, some of the characters, like Mr. Belding, Dennis Haskins, or Zack Morris, Mark Paul Gosselaar, I think Screech, Dustin Diamond, might have been on the original series, which was not Saved by the Bell, but they originated on Good Morning Miss Bliss, which ran for a season or 2 and then was canceled, and then they just spun those characters off and added a few more with what is Saved by the Bell, which ran from 1989 to 1993. Quickly followed that up with Saved by the Bell, the college years, and then at the same time, Saved by the Bell, the new class, aired from 1993 through 2000. The thing is, I wasn't a big fan of the original series, perhaps because I was a bit too young and it just wasn't my demographic. I didn't get it. It wasn't my thing. I mean, I will give it that both, I did enjoy the theme song. It does have a kick-ass theme song. And, well, Saved by the Bell, the college years, love the theme song there. But I just, it just wasn't my thing. I tried to get into it over the years because up here in Canada, we do get everything that, you guys down in the state, or everybody down in the States gets. So, Saved by the Bell was syndicated through various stations in Canada, and we do get TBS up here. So at the time, I think it was aired on TBS in terms of stateside syndication, and we do get it up here. So I did manage to see pretty much as much Saved by the Bell as I could growing up, because I know that from 93 to 2000, the main series, Saved by the Bell, the new class, grew up in sort of my youth. That was ages 4 through 11 for me, I think. And I did see a lot more of that, even though I don't remember much of it. And then I did see a lot of Saved by the Bell, the college years. I remember that. And then, in syndication, as I was growing up, after it had gone off the air, the original series itself, Saved by the Bell, which in itself is a spin-off of Good Morning Miss Bliss, which I have seen a little bit of. There you go. But, as I said, I just wasn't a big fan of the original series, and I don't obviously I was a bit too young, and it wasn't really my thing. It wasn't my demographic, and obviously I didn't fit the demographic, because it was meant towards middle school and high school kids, and I wasn't there yet. So I saw the Reboot Revival Series trailer not too long ago, and I feel there's a lot of positive reports coming out about it, but in my opinion, it's just kind of meh. It's just one of those series that was popular about 30 years ago where Hollywood's like, hey, this would be a good idea. Didn't they already do that? Yeah, let's do it again. And I was just like, I mean, there's no mention of Dennis Haskins, who played Mr. Belding, so I'm assuming that he's not involved with this reboot or revival, even though it would be cool to see him come back and make some sort of cameo or like just drop in once. That would be cool. And in this reboot, apparently, which is going to air on Peacock, which is NBC's direct-to-consumer streaming service, at least in the States. I know it debuted in mid-April for Xfinity customers in the US, and it's going to get a much wider release in July, so who knows what's going to happen there. What's going to happen with the series as it pertains to airing in Canada, I don't know, because as I've said, this Yo Nostalgia is produced out of Toronto, Canada, where I happen to be from. So, after watching the trailer, I just, again, like, meh. I'm kind of, okay, whatever. I'm lukewarm on it, right? Because apparently Zack Morris, the Zack Morris character, is now the governor of whatever state it's set in. I'm assuming that's California, because Bayside, it sounds like something from California, in my opinion. I don't know. Somebody else tell me. Somebody that knows this series better than I do, please do let me know. But I'm assuming it's set in California, and Zack Morris, who is now the governor, has closed. This is the synopsis of the series that I've read, where Zack Morris, who's now the governor, and funny thing, Mark Paul Gosselaar did close a deal to return to the reboot in the Zack Morris role, so that'd be cool to see him come through as the governor, right? So he closes down a lot of the low-income schools, and an idea is proposed where those kids get shuffled over and sort of amalgamated and mixed in with the Bayside crowd. So you have like these really preppy rich kids mixed with sort of like lower income, middle class kids, and it's just kind of, you have rich snobs and people that are a lot more humble and down to earth. Anything can happen. That's just the synopsis that I read and what I gather from the plot points that have been delved out in various press releases. So, Zack Morris, now the governor, and Mario Lopez returns in the AC Slater role. He is a gym teacher at Bayside. Elizabeth Berkley returns in the Jessie Spano role. Not sure what role, what her character these days does, but you will get Elizabeth Berkley, AC Slater, you'll get Elizabeth Berkley as Jessie Spano, Mario Lopez as AC Slater, and Mark Paul Gosselaar as Zack Morris. So for people of my generation, or of my age bracket and slightly older, I guess that's everything you could want in a Saved by the Bell reboot. I'm not the biggest fan of reboots, and that's why I'm kind of meh on this series, because it's something that's already been done, and it just, okay. And, after watching this trailer, there's a scene in there where, because it's 2020 and pretty much everybody's going paperless, one student looks at another student and then just goes, yeah, Bayside's gone about 90% paperless, and getting your books is kind of a hassle, and all he does is just kind of scan a tablet or phone or whatever that is to get his books, and it's just like, oh, that took forever. And I'm like, oh, we're doing this. She's kind of like, oh, that's so cool. I'm like, no, man, I'm not, it's not sort of realistic for me. I don't know. Maybe it's just me. It's not realistic in my opinion, and I'm just, because nobody talks like, oh, that was such a hassle. No, man. Nobody talks like that. And you have Mario Lopez, who's AC Slater, and he's now a gym teacher at Bayside High. So he's, apparently in this one scene, it's in the trailer, which I will link in the description, by the way. There are two kids in his office apparently they look a bit rough because they look like they've just gotten into a fight with each other over. Apparently, it's over a girl because you just see this shot of Mario Lopez talking to these two kids, going, "Yeah, I mean, I used to get into fights with my best friend over a girl all the time," and then he just looks at both kids and goes, "Hey, yeah, that was with your dad, who I was fighting with him over your mom." And then I just got over it and hooked up with another girl who happened to be your mom. And it was just kind of like, oh, we're doing this. I just kind of, I mean, I suppose, I don't want to call the jokes cheap because I'm not the one writing them. And, I understand that writing and acting and performing and whatever, that's a lot of hard work because I've done it for a long time. And it's just, like, who writes this stuff and why? Nah, man. I'm not. It comes across as really corny. Maybe that's what they were going for. Even though there are a couple scenes in the trailer where, you see Mario Lopez and Elizabeth Berkley together and they're just reminiscing on their times at Bayside High. And, there is this one scene where Mario Lopez is with a student and he's just kind of, trying to bring him down to earth, I guess, where it's like, I know I might seem like a hip and cool, happy guy. And the student just looks at him and goes, "You're a gym teacher, and I saw you eating soup in your car." He's like, "Yeah." And it's just, I don't know what they're going for in terms of, like, the tone of the series. Maybe it's just giving rich kids a dose of reality because not everybody is born with a silver spoon in their mouths and not everybody is born so lucky. So maybe that's the message they're trying to send. I don't know. And after watching the trailer, I just kind of, I'm meh on the revival. I don't know how it's going to air up here in Canada or anywhere else because obviously NBC's streaming service Peacock was just launched in the middle of April to Xfinity customers and will get a wider launch in July. But, obviously, like, as far as I know, it's only available down south in the States. And if I can, I tell you what, when the series, I'm already meh on the series, but you know what? I will give it a shot. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of it, I will give it a look simply because, you know what? They're trying to do this thing. They're trying to reboot it. And, they're just trying to see what happens. Because everything like 80s and 90s is in nowadays because everybody that's from the 80s and 90s is between the ages of 30 and 40 now, for the most part. If you're anywhere like me or if you're a bit older, you're between the ages of like 30 and 40 because, those were the 80s and 90s were a while ago, and everything from then is now back in, per se. Everything just runs in cycles. And I suppose this is just one of those things where let's reboot another popular property from back in the day, and that's exactly what NBC is trying to do with throwing the Saved by the Bell reboot onto its streaming service Peacock. When it comes to airing the show or the reboot in other countries, up here in Canada or anywhere else, I'm not sure what's going to happen. I'm sure that'll all be ironed out in the months, weeks to come as things get closer to its actual premiere. But who knows what'll happen. But there it is, my reaction and review sort of the Saved by the Bell revival / reboot trailer. Let me know what you think. If you've seen the trailer, I will leave a link to it in the description below. But please do comment, like, share, and subscribe. Find YONOSTALGIA on YouTube under Leigh Dickey TV, my official website, LeighTDickey.com, and on your favorite podcast app and player of choice, iTunes, Spotify, and wherever podcasts are available. Please do rate us 5 stars and leave reviews as well, because that helps us climb in the rankings, which means more episodes for you, because I really do enjoy doing this show. If you want to follow along on social media, follow along at YONOSTALGIASHOW. Send your emails, comments, questions, and topics you want covered, and anything else you want me to talk about here on Yo Nostalgia to yonostalgiashow@gmail.com. But this wraps up another episode of Yo Nostalgia. Thank you all for tuning in, watching, listening, subscribing, and all that good stuff. I will see you again in 2 weeks for a brand new episode of Yo Nostalgia. Again, I have been Leigh Dickey. This has been Yo Nostalgia, and I am signing off. We'll talk to you later. Have a good one. Peace.